Trigger warning for discussions of child abuse and neglect.
Hello! Welcome to Friends at Film Camp, the podcast where two friends gab by the fire about our fun film perspectives. I'm Jinian.
And I'm Luke.
Today we're discussing Matilda. I love Matilda.
Okay. Matilda is a 1996 film directed by Danny DeVito,
Which is
starring
impressive.
Mara Wilson and Danny DeVito, among others. The film originally was a commercial failure in theaters and was only able to gain any profit or following after release.
Really?
Yeah.
That's surprising.
It didn't even gross back its budget in theaters. It only made $33 million.
Huh.
According to Wikipedia, the most reliable source for information. So before we go through the plot, what did you think of Matilda?
I adore Matilda. Matilda is one of the movies I watched like all the time as a kid. And for me, at least, it's one of the ones where you like, when you revisit it, it's not disappointing. Like, so much of what you watch as a kid, you see it so differently. But I find Matilda's like, honestly, like the same experience, and it completely holds up in my opinion. I think it's a really smart and well done movie, especially like a really well done kids movie. It's almost like a thriller for kids, you know?
I can see that. My history with Matilda is that I watched it in grade 3 when our class read the book, and then I watched it last night.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I didn't have very much of a history with Matilda, so it was interesting.
Such a history. Matilda was one of those characters when I was little that like made me feel inferior. But I loved her anyway. But like the beginning scene where she's making pancakes when she's like 4, I was like, I don't know how to make pancakes. I'm a failure as a 4-year-old. Okay, so the movie starts with a voiceover. I know some people have problems with voiceovers. I don't know. I've never found it an issue, especially when it's done really well. And I think it's a really interesting case in this film because Danny DeVito does the voiceover, but he is in no way doing the voiceover as his character in the film. He's like, he almost functions as like the storybook teller. Or what's that thing in theater? The narrator?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like him. He narrates the film, but I personally find it adds a lot. And I really like the narration.
I think the narration is really good.
Yeah.
I think Danny DeVito does a really good job with the narration. I do not like that Danny DeVito is the narrator and the father.
Why?
It is distracting the whole time.
I don't think it's distracting because it's not
the narrator in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but that's fine.
No, it's not fine.
I think it's
they
totally
sound the
fine.
same. So every time the narrator cuts in, I'm like, why is the dad talking? And then I have to remind myself that this is not the dad. This is just the narrator who is separate, but it's the same guy.
I don't have that experience at all, but that could be because when I was a kid, I had no idea that they were the same person.
I instantly heard it while watching it again. And every time it took me out for a second and it ruins it. And I'm so sad because he's great in both roles. And as directing, he does a great job in all these aspects. But I don't like that he did them all because I'm distracted when he narrates and stars. I wanted him to do one or the other.
That's not my experience at all. I think it adds a lot. I think part of how this movie functions and part of it being sort of like a thriller for kids, because it has a lot of these very scary elements and like very scary scenes, is that it like always undercuts it. So that as a kid, you're scared and then the pressure is released. You're not left in that fear. And I think that Danny DeVito being the narrator as well as the dad is an element of that, in that it reminds you as a child that this is just a story because you're hearing the same man who's being very abusive and scary in the story. Now he's sounding nice and he's like telling you the story almost like he's your dad and he's playing the character of the abusive father, but that's not actually happening to you. Like, I feel like it's a part that reminds children that it's just a story and like they're gonna be okay, because the movie's dealing with very deep stuff and like very scary situations, and I think that's an element that makes it so that it's entertaining for kids and it is high stakes, but it's like it softens it so that they're like okay watching it.
I just disagree so strongly. Like, it wasn't a thing that ruined the film or anything, but I didn't like it. And every time he narrated, it took me out of it. So, a young genius Matilda, who is regularly neglected and mistreated by her parents and her brother, as she grows up, she gets to be really smart and likes books.
Yes. She uses... So I think the beginning of this film is really unique in that we often have... I feel like in young adult fiction and such, or even kid films like Disney princesses, we touched on this with Frozen a bit, we often have main characters with very difficult childhoods, and that's like neglect or abuse or, you know, being locked in a tower the whole time or whatever. But this film is unique in that we actually explore that time rather than like just talking about it from like the perspective of the main character. And I think I think it's really valuable to kind of give this artistic outlet to kids who could be experiencing the same or similar things in a way that's like not too much for them. But also, like, as a child, in all of our games, and this probably had to do with the media we watched, like in all of my like imaginary games as a child, we were always like orphans, or we were abandoned, or we had like some extreme plight that we had to deal with. So I don't know if that's like art imitating life or life imitating art, but at least in my experience of being a kid, it's like a very classic child narrative to want to like go into the like extremes and like you somehow like defeat them and you escape and you overcome them. So like my experience of watching this film as a child, like it always like fit into all of those things that I wanted from a story, and it was like very satisfying.
Yeah. I think I don't know what I think.
Well, did you also have that, like, when you were a kid in imaginary games, that you were in these, like, extreme situations? Because I don't know if that's universal.
We never had that type of thing. I think our extreme situations were more, like, spies and dinosaurs.
Yeah. I also had that, but normally I was, like, you know, an orphan, and they would only feed me lemons or something.
That's so cruel.
Yeah. My imaginary games are very intense with my friends. Okay, so that's not universal, so that's interesting.
I noticed during this intro that I liked how the parents and the other, and most characters in this movie, but right now we're focusing on them so much.
Yeah.
I liked how, just because they're bad people, they weren't evil. They were just, like, less than good.
Yes. I get what you're saying.
The mom wouldn't, like, lock her in a cage or anything. The mom always made sure she had food. The mom just didn't really care about, like, didn't really had the will to care about how she got the food. So she just put a can out. She's like, she can eat this.
It's like a classic case of, like, parents who never should have had kids. Because they're, like, their main crime really is selfishness. And that they just want everything to be exactly their way, and they don't care about Matilda specifically, because I think the reason that their relationship with their son is better is because he conforms to everything they want from their life, whereas Matilda is like very different from how they want her to be, and so the best way to deal with that is to kind of just ignore it. But it's like, it's like a very believable and real depiction of like an abusive family situation that isn't like a, like, I don't know, you know, like a Disney villain situation or anything, but it's still like very harmful, but they're still like humans.
Yes, I like how they're not. It's like that Wreck-It Ralph quote: "Just because you are bad guy does not mean you are bad guy."
I don't know. I mean, I think they are pretty bad guys.
I know it's not the perfect quote, but I think, like, just because they're evil, or just because they're the film's bad,
they're not completely
bad guy,
irredeemable.
doesn't mean that they're like, just monstrous for the sake of monstrous.
Yeah.
I liked the quote that was at the end of the film, where Matilda's mom says to her.
I love this quote.
Matilda's mom says to her parent, "We never really hated you. They just never got her."
Yeah. No, she says, like, "You're the only little girl I've ever had, and I never understood you, not one time." And it's such an emotional, like, it's the only kind of like emotional thing we've seen from her mom, and it completely sums up the situation. I love that quote. I think it's beautiful.
Yes, I think it's really fun. Okay, so let's move forth to when Matilda's parents refuse to enroll her school.
Okay, wait, because we cannot skip over the iconic scene with the iconic music of, like, Matilda making the pancakes.
I don't remember that scene.
What? Luke, that's like the most famous scene in the movie, along with her dancing to the same band, I think. You don't remember her making pancakes?
Are you sure this was before she pulls the prank?
Yeah, because it was when she was really little. It was when she was her 4-year-old actor, not our main actress.
Okay, hold on.
We just have to acknowledge that it is an iconic scene, and it did make me feel inferior as a child, because I wanted to be Matilda so bad.
No, I have no recollection of this scene.
I don't know. This scene made such a big impact on me. Oh.
I'm sorry. I'm looking at it right now to try and get it up.
I also really like that. I think it's really sweet. Kind of. It's really sweet that the reason she gets into books is a form of escapism from her family and her loneliness. Also, kind of, we've been dealing with a lot of movies that deal with, like, loneliness and such, but I think it's a very common reaction in everyone, not just kids, but especially kids who are not in the best family or life situation, to get really absorbed in books. I know that that's not personally my experience in life, but I've heard about that exact experience from people close to me. So I think that is not only accurate, but then also useful as like a device for her to, like, know a bunch of stuff later on in the story.
I like how she reads a lot as a child as escapism. Yeah, I think it's a fun way for her to find her joy in her day.
Yeah.
And again, it gives a good reason for why she's smart. She just likes to read, and what else is she going to do? Okay, so let's move to the scenes where, after Matilda's parents refuse to let her enroll in school, Matilda starts to... I liked this scene so much. I thought it was cute. Matilda's parents punish her by... or she punishes them, sorry. Matilda's parents are punished by Matilda.
For bad behavior.
Did that make any sense?
Which is so smart. Yeah, which is so smart, because I actually noticed this being a theme throughout the movie, which I've never noticed before. But so Matilda's dad says to her, like, when people are bad, they need to be punished. And the narrator is like, he accidentally gave her the idea that children are allowed to punish their parents, because he said people instead of children. And she was like, oh, that means I can punish you when you behave badly. So she starts basically pulling pranks on them. But the really cool thing I noticed later on in the film is when Matilda's talking to Miss Honey at some point, and they're talking about like fear or something, and Matilda says to Miss Honey, I thought grown-ups weren't afraid of anything. And then Mrs. Honey says, no, grown-ups are just as afraid like as kids are about lots of things. And then we see Matilda literally use fear against Trunchbull. Like, literally her entire plot involves scaring her, but she only does that after they have this conversation where Mrs. Honey is like, no, adults can feel fear. And so Matilda, like, goes with it.
This is a very good movie for setup and payoff.
Yes.
Things are always set up before they happen.
And I had never noticed that before, that they kept that theme going of, like, adults giving Matilda ideas. But when I realized that had happened, I thought that was really cool. But yes, this prank scene, and I think
multiple prank scenes,
multiple,
really.
Yeah. I think the camera work in this film and the direction is really underrated. I think Danny DeVito does such a good job putting us in Matilda's shoes, and making this house, which is just a like tacky 80s house, feels so scary sometimes. And he does such a good job of like showing you the tone of situations. Like that scene, I remember that scene so clearly when she puts the bleach in his hair while they're asleep and then they like start to wake up. Like that was so tense when I was little. And especially the scenes with the TV when they're all watching TV and they turn off all the other lights in the room. And so it's like this like very electronic light that's shining on all of their faces. It's so uncomfortable. Like that made me viscerally uncomfortable when I was little, and it still makes me uncomfortable. Like, and it's almost all in lighting. They're very creative with how they light this movie. And yeah, it does such a good job of putting us in Matilda's shoes where we're so like tense and on board when she's trying to like do the pranks and not get caught.
Yes, I think the pranks were fun. They were all about poor Danny DeVito's hair.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I just thought was like a funny thing. She knew he spent time on the hair, so she was like, I just have to get him on the hair every time. But that was really funny.
This movie also, like, similar to Cruella that we just talked about, I find the plot moves, like, really quickly. Like, this pranking, it's basically, like, we're introduced, and then we have this, like, pranking segment, and then we have, like, the school segment, and then we have the breaking into Trunchbull's house segment, and then we have the end. But it does, like, a similar thing, at least in my opinion, where it moves along the story at like a really good pace.
Yes, I think the film moves along at a really good pace. Like right after the prank scene, which is an important scene that I think we're skipping, but we need to quickly talk about.
Sorry.
Which is when Matilda's dad tries to punish her by making her watch dumb TV, and so she blows up the TV with her mind, yes, unintentionally.
To this day, that clip of that like TV show of the dude getting all sticky to like get money, I don't know why it makes me feel ill. Like I have a visceral negative reaction to that fake TV show, which I think is like a huge credit to the film.
I think that's a fair assessment of it, honestly.
Did you find it super uncomfortable too?
I thought it was like a little weird and kind of groggy.
Yeah.
Which is what they were trying to do. It's like just a little too
Yeah.
So Matilda blowing up the TV, we're like, yay, go Matilda.
It's such a relief.
So after the TV's blown up, the dad has the kids go to school after he exchanges their tuition for a car for Miss Agatha Trunchbull.
Yeah.
The notorious principal of the school, who everyone is like, she is a monster and she's mean, and I loved her. This Trunchbull is so fun.
Trunchbull is a fantastic villain. She's so scary and she's played really well. I do have an issue, and I don't know if you're going to be annoyed with me about this. But, okay, as much as I love Mrs. Honey and I love Trunchbull as a villain, I do have an issue in how they frame Trunchbull's, like, butchiness in a, like, very fearful way. It was reminding me of the politics of pretty, which I've seen in relation to a lot of Sofia Coppola's work. In that Mrs. Honey is, like, beautiful, and she's, like, timid, and she's, like, nice, and Trunchbull is, like, butch and, like, mean and masculine, and I do have a bit of a problem with equating masculinity in women with evilness and, like, fearfulness, because it's something we've seen a lot of. That being said, Trunchbull's a great villain. I just wish we didn't have maybe, like, so much reference to her being, like, ugly, because I don't know. But to be fair to the film, it was made in the 90s, so it, like, would have been normal. I just think, like, butch women are normally lovely ladies, and they are not evil, scary people who are trying to murder you.
Well, I think I agree that on a deeper social level, the film has multiple areas where it could improve in. But I'm kind of, I had not much of an issue with her. I saw her as, like, Glenn Close in the 101 Dalmatian films.
Mm-hmm.
Just a character that's so over the top.
Yeah.
But also, I liked it how she was really never evil. She never did anything.
No, she was evil. She killed Mrs. Honey's dad.
Hold on, you have to let me finish.
Okay.
She was never evil just to be evil. Like, she never just, she didn't, like, throw that little girl with the pigtails just because she could.
Yes, she
did it because the girl with the pigtails wasn't supposed to be wearing pigtails.
No,
so it was
she
like
decided that on the
thing.
spot.
So I'm like, she's just an extreme punisher.
No.
And I know people like that, where they're loud and they're punishers. So I liked how they could have just made her 100% evil. But really, it's what you said. She's just very athletic and determined and hates children, which is a bad career choice on her part.
I'm not saying she's not evil. I think she's evil in this movie.
I didn't say you said she wasn't evil. I'm saying I don't think she's evil. And I'm agreeing with your point that I think she's not evil. And I think that she's just butch. Or she's just,
No!
I think she's just large and powerful.
No, she is evil. I disagree with them equating butchiness to being evil. But no, you can't just say she's just butch, because butch people do not behave how she's behaving.
Don't even try to frame it that that's what I was trying to mean.
Okay, what are you trying to mean?
I am not suggesting that she is butch, which equals she is evil. I am saying that the children are afraid of her because she's a large, powerful woman.
Yes. But she also is
again, if you want to go into deeper social statuses, powerful women, large, powerful women are historically, I'm sure, very oppressed in their main sources on that.
Yes,
but
that's very true. But you can't...
She doesn't just be evil for evil. She has a purpose in every evil.
No, I disagree.
You're wrong.
Like, you could make that argument, but you can't say she's not being... She literally has a fucking thing called a chokey that she puts kids in for no reason. Like, she puts Matilda in it because her dad did something.
Have you never had a punishment closet at your school before?
No.
You've never had one? That surprises me.
Your school has punishment closets?
No.
With glass and stuff?
What?
Why are you shocked?
It's going to the corner or going to sit on the stairs. That's just the chokey is that to the extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's...
So it's scary because it's in the view of children.
Yeah.
So why are you like, this is unacceptable?
Because the choking is unacceptable. It has nails and broken glass, and she makes kids stand in there sometimes a whole day, which is like equivalent to torture methods, to have to stand perfectly still and not be able to move for hours on end.
I think you're overthinking the choking.
What do you mean? That's what it is.
I don't think it was meant to be taken that literally. But
you think it's not a literal interpretation?
If you want to interpret the film as 100% literal, then yes, the choking is evil.
You were not interpreting that as like a literal place.
I interpreted it as everything is coming through the kid's perspective.
Yeah, but I think we are supposed to see this film from the kid's perspective.
Yes, so when I see everything that's like big and over the top, I'm always like, okay, that's through what the kids see it as.
Okay. I see what you're saying. I take it literally probably because I saw this as a child and that was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen.
No.
And I was concerned that there would literally be a closet full of glass that I'd have to stand in at my school.
No, just to be clear,
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. If you're
sued by some human rights group, I think Miss Trunchbull is a bad person. I liked how the film wasn't like she's evil because she's evil.
No,
she always does evil things.
I get what you're
with
saying.
A reason, like she punishes the girl with pigtails, but instead of being like you have to do detention, your punishment is I'm gonna pick you up by your pigtails and throw you over the fence.
Yeah.
So, like, she's not just cruel. She's only doing bad things when the situation requires a response, and she picks a really bad one.
Okay, the reason I don't agree with that is because I think she is just cruel, and she makes rules as an excuse. She only reacts to things. She makes unfollowable and like ridiculous rules for the excuse to use it. It's not like it's a rule with a purpose.
I disagree, but I think we're in a loop now.
I can understand where you're coming from more at seeing all of her reactions, or not reactions, but all of her actions as sort of exaggerated through the eyes of children and how you would see it as a kid. But I'm taking everything literally, and I don't know if I can not do that because of my experience of watching her as a kid. Wait, no, before we move on, I want to talk about the scene where she throws the girl, because it's another example of this movie giving us a very scary and tense situation, which shows us kind of the stakes that Matilda is in and how scary Trunchbull is. But then, literally halfway through the throw, as soon as she makes it into that garden, the girl starts grabbing all the flowers as she flies through the air, and the music turns from tense to triumphant, and all the kids start cheering, and then the girl gives the flowers to Miss Honey. I just think that's another really good example of this scene shifting the emotions so that as children watching it, you're not stuck in that this is very scary for a long time. It's the kids won in the end because she got to pick flowers.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say the kids won in the end.
I know,
I agree with the film. It's able to go very high stakes because it always knows to resolve them before it's too long. And the kids have to hold on to that, which I think it's very well done.
We have the exact same thing. We have the exact same thing in the cake scene, where it's really, really tense, and then we all start cheering.
I'm moving us forward to Miss Honey.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Miss Honey, the warm and intelligent teacher that Matilda instantly is you're amazing, you're great. Mm-hmm. Well, I like Miss Honey. I think she's fun. I think she's the perfect embodiment of that great teacher you have in elementary school when you're in learning. I think she just fits that persona very well, where she's smart but she's kind. So I think Miss Honey's just a great fun character.
I think Miss Honey is she's so cute. She's a gay awakening for a lot of people, probably including me. And I think her and Matilda are like kindred spirits. Like that's kind of what I kept coming back to. They've gone through a lot of the similar things, and I feel like they recognize that in each other.
Yes, I think that they instantly have like the same energy from each other, and they can tell.
Which like I think lends itself to them creating this very close and like motherly relationship without it going like too far into creepy. It could still be seen as creepy, especially like without any context, but it doesn't read that way in the film at all.
I thought they were a little creepy. I did get a few times in the film where I'm like, Miss Honey and Matilda are just like too friendly, and not to suggest it was an inappropriate friendship. I was just like, they're too close for student teachers. And I don't like this. I wish that they had built up the friendship a little more, because then it felt it would have maybe worked more organically. I didn't love how they instantly were like, ooh, you're amazing.
Yeah.
But I think it wasn't that bad, honestly. I really liked the character of Honey, and I liked her relationship with Matilda as the film went on. I just thought it was a bit much at the start.
No, it is. That's fair. Yeah, I think it's sort of a you see, you're having the problem I normally have, but I think it is a result of them having to like move the plot forward quickly.
Yeah.
But you are right. Like it is a little weird when she invites her over to her house and stuff, but like I don't know. As a kid, it always made sense.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not the best thing to teach kids, but also it was the 90s, you know.
I think you're giving the 90s too much credit.
Maybe.
Okay, I'm skipping over the cake scene because we've talked about it already. So
well, you didn't say anything. What did you think of the cake scene? Because I always have found it horrific. Being over full is literally one of my least favorite feelings in the entire world, so this scene's really difficult.
Yeah, I thought it was overfull. I liked it. It's like a fun movie punishment. You ate cake? Well, have all the cake in the world then.
Yeah.
It's like that silly Simpsons joke where he goes and has to eat all the donuts in the world. I just thought it's funny. It's like a funny kid's punishment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was like a little much.
What do you mean?
Like it's a very severe punishment.
Yes.
But it's still a situation where a punishment was warranted. Not that punishment.
Yeah, like, I was surprised when I was re-watching it that, like, he snuck into the kitchen and ate her cake. Like, that was fucking bold. Like, that was kind of an insane move on his part to eat random cake in the staff kitchen when you know your principal is, like, insane and throws kids. Like, that was a lot on his part.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think that's the thing. When I watched the film, and we'll talk about this more later, but we were watching it, when I was watching it, I was like, she doesn't normally start a lot of these problems. Like, other people start them. And we'll go more into that later. But I saw that in this scene too. A child stole her cake from the staff lounge. So, like, a punishment is warranted. Now, granted, force-feeding a child until he's about to explode seems maybe the slightest bit too harsh. But, point being, is that I did notice it. Let's talk about the FBI agents.
They're fun. I like how they talk like old-timey, like, like 1920s police officers. It's just very cute for like a kids movie. And I think it's really funny that Matilda knows that they're cops and tells her parents they're cops multiple times, and they ignore her because they think Matilda's dumb and doesn't know anything. It's just very in character for them. Oh, speaking of that iconic speech that her dad does to her of like, I'm big, you're small, I'm smart, you're dumb. One, I think that's just like a great speech on how it feels to be a kid sometimes, even if you don't have like an abusive household at all. Sometimes you feel like that. You're just like, so I think that's just a very like effective speech by him, but it also then carries on, like it very much spells out how he feels about his daughter, and it carries on throughout the rest of the film. That he's like, obviously you're too dumb. Like I think he literally says, I would know if police were watching my house. And the fact that they're pretending to be speedboat salesmen and like hanging out with her mom is just hilarious, because again, it's very in character for what they've established for the parents, that her mom would accept any excuse to have some like fun company, basically.
I thought they were fun characters. I thought the actors did fun, and I liked the jokes with them. My only real issue with them was, I don't know, they kind of felt not necessary.
Yeah, they're not necessary, but I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, that's why I'm like, there's
personally...
something wrong with them there. But sometimes it's like, you could have used this time for other things.
I don't think so. I don't have that issue because I don't have anything in the movie that I think they needed that time for.
Yeah,
and I
would agree. The movie didn't have anything else that it was like desperately needing time to develop that this was taking from.
Yeah.
So I have no issue with it. I liked it. I just, every time I saw it, I was like, this is kind of pointless. But you know what? Pointless stuff is still fine if it's fun.
Yeah.
So I was fine with it.
That is like an argument. Like some people are of the opinion that everything in a movie should be moving the plot forward. And like that does move the plot element forward in where her parents are like moving at the end, but they could have done that a different way. But I don't know. Personally, I'm not of that opinion because oftentimes my favorite things in a film or a TV show are like the little moments that you experience that give you sort of insights into characters and like relationships.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it when she tricks them into getting the tape by losing her powers later. So
because that's really sweet too. Because
she was like, "Dad's still cool enough."
Yeah, exactly. It like shows the complexness of their relationship, and that we've really only seen her have negative experiences with him, but it's like still her dad. So she's still like, I don't want you to go to jail, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we disagree very much on this one.
Talking about the mom. So the mom is played by the same actress in Little Shop of Horrors, right? No?
I'll check for you right now.
Are you sure?
But I'm
okay.
Confident it's a no.
Really?
No, she's
That's gonna blow my mind. Are you sure?
I'm looking at her bio right now.
Who's the girl from Little Shop of Horrors then? I literally always thought it was this person.
No. Little Shop of Horrors. If you give me a sec. That was... First off, Little Shop of Horrors is a decade older than this film.
Yeah, well, she's significantly older in this than she was in the other one.
But that's Ellen Green. Or Ellen Greenie. She's from Pushing Up Daisies. Ellen Greenie.
Oh, yeah.
As Vivian.
No, that makes me so sad. I always thought they were the same person.
No.
Okay, that's fine.
This actress is Rhea Perlman. Who, does a bunch of other movies.
Her clothes in this are very entertaining.
Yeah, I liked her outfits. They were fun.
Which is just, she's a very iconically visual character, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think every time you see her, you get a fun look.
Yeah.
So she's always fun to be a part of the story. So I liked her. So,
okay, Matilda goes to school. Trunchbull throws the girl. We establish it's like a scary environment. Then Matilda in class, they're doing like times tables, and Mrs. Honey throws out like a random, very difficult multiplication as like a joke, and then Matilda like says it right off the top of her head, and Mrs. Honey is like, oh shit, this girl's really smart. And so she tries to talk to Matilda's parents and Trunchbull about how she thinks like Matilda should go up a grade because she's like super smart, and like everyone dismisses her.
Yeah. But I like how the Trunchbull again had a reason. Like, it wasn't just like, she's not smart. She's like, oh, you just want to get rid of her because she's bad. It's like, I'm like, that makes sense for a person who thinks every student's bad.
Yeah.
So I liked that. I also liked after Matilda's punished for her dad's terrible car that Miss Trunchbull got, the whole class like defends her with the newt in the water and stuff. Like, they try and get their revenge on Miss Trunchbull, which I thought was cute in a way that Matilda like.
Oh yeah, I guess it is.
Friendship.
They have this cute scene where they're all in like a creek, and Lavender's like, a bug. And I don't know why, but that scene is fucking, it just lives in my brain. And they're like, what did you find? And she's like, a bug. And then it's a newt. It's not even a bug.
Well, my Netflix caption said she was saying a frog.
No, really.
That's what Netflix was saying. I was like, I don't think she's saying a frog, but
it sounds like a bug.
Yeah, I heard bug too.
Okay. But yeah, so that scene's always really cute. And then so that also kind of shows us the class like bonding. Like we're like, okay, they're like all in this together. They're doing fun kid stuff despite all the craziness going on. Yeah, and then Trunchbull puts Matilda in the chokey, which is like the scariest scene as a kid. And Trunchbull goes to the classroom. Do you remember why she's in the classroom at that point?
She teaches classes, all the classes in the school every now and then to like scare them.
Okay. Yeah, and then Lavender puts the newt into her water as like revenge. And I really like the narrator's line at this point. He's like most plans are a result of like serious planning and like time, but some ideas like just present themselves to you or something while she's looking at the newt, and then she puts it in the jug.
I thought that was such a fun little scene, and it showed the Trunchbull's still human, so like she has weaknesses.
It's a very like it's another example of the lessening the tension for kids in how they in no way try to, in the moments where they're like humiliating the Trunchbull or like taking her down a peg or something, they in no way try to keep her, like, I feel like in an adult movie you want to keep the villain sort of at a certain level of like scariness no matter what, and it's like they aren't afraid to like completely have her be like completely terrified, which I feel like is really good as a kid, because that's like it's such a good release where you're like not scared of her for at least a few minutes.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the break-in scene.
Oh my god, the scene is so scary.
I like the break-in scene. I think it's fun.
So, wait, first off, I love the backstory that Mrs. Honey is Trunchbull's niece.
Yes.
Because we get that right before, and it's justification for why they're breaking into Trunchbull's house, which is kind of an insane thing to do, but because it is legally supposed to be Mrs. Honey's house, really.
Yeah.
It's more like it's still illegal, but it's morally not so shady.
Morally justifiable now.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the backstory is really good in not only making Mrs. Honey a parallel to Matilda. I think it's also just like juicy and fun.
I think it's a lot of fun. It goes back to the thing I said before, where Trunchbull's kind of responding to stuff because from her perspective, there's someone breaking into her house right now. So obviously she's going to be running around being like, I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
Because that's a reasonable reaction.
I was realizing that. Yeah, I was realizing that when I was rewatching it. I was like, yeah, there's just straight up someone in her house and she doesn't know who it is. But yeah, them trying to get out is so scary. The scene with the hallway with all the pots and pans is. Oh, also, I had a realization while we were watching this. So we watched Silence of the Lambs recently, and I know from the special features and such that I've watched on that film that the set design they did at Buffalo Bill's house was very specific, and it was modeled after a lot of different serial killers and how like their actual houses were found when they had been discovered. It's like a very particular kind of like messy and like chaoticness, and Trunchbull's house had an extremely similar vibe, which I feel like it's almost a it almost gives like an instinctual, like it almost sets off an instinctual alarm in the back of your head. You're like, something's wrong with this place. Like this is a bad place to be. Anyway, I just found the parallels that I saw to like the set design in Buffalo Bill's house like really interesting.
Yes, I agree.
Especially like the kitchen and that hallway in particular.
Yeah, it's well set up, so everything feels very natural for the house, but also how it should be.
Yeah,
so I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
This film in general does so good with like vibes. Like they really like succinctly and like what's the other word? And they really succinctly give you the correct vibe for the like place that you're in and the scene that you're in. Like when I was talking about before with how they could make the house that Matilda lives in with her parents feel very like horrific and scary, they can make the same house in the exact same set also feel very fun with like framing and lighting, like when she's making the pancakes and when she's practicing her powers. It's the exact same set, but they are so good at establishing the vibe of the scene and also changing it quickly.
Yeah. I think that they keep the vibe going, they keep the energy going, they just keep it moving, and they always find a different way to keep the stakes high in a way that they really didn't need to, because they could have just been a very simple running around scene, but they really tried to make the most of that house.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I also love that, like, because at one point, because Mrs. Honey has lived there, so she's like, oh, go down this hallway, and then there's a door out the kitchen, and then the door to the kitchen is like, she's like boarded it shut, and then at one point they run downstairs, and then the door to outside is also like chained shut. There's like all these unexpected roadblocks in their way that make sense that Trunchbull would have done that, because she just seems like the type of person.
Yes.
But it like amps up the like tension. It's like a new thing they have to like figure out.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate. I think they always find a way to add the new layer of tension to the scene.
Mm-hmm. Also, I noticed in the scene when Matilda's under the kitchen table and Trunchbull like thinks somebody is there, and she's like slowly going to like lift up the tablecloth, and you only see her like shadow. They use that motif like quite a few times throughout the film, where we're just seeing people's shadows, which I just think is interesting and very like, it has very storybook vibes. Like when Trunchbull and Matilda's dad meet for the first time and they're talking about her buying a car, like we only see their silhouettes.
Mm-hmm. I like her silhouette. She has such a good silhouette for the use of shadows. Yeah. You have anything else you want to say?
About the housebreaking scene? I don't think so. Trunchbull does kick a cat, like, really hard, and that was upsetting.
I wasn't upset because you saw the cat being fine.
You saw that the cat was okay. It's just, like, a lot.
Yes, but you're also a cat mother, so you're particularly...
I know. Kiki was with me when I saw that, and she, like, looked shocked. I'm sure she wasn't even paying attention, Kiki. But I was like, Kiki, no, you're okay.
Okay. So after this scene, Matilda trains up her telekinetic powers.
Yeah. She's had them happen like a few times, normally when she's like really upset. And she's tried to have them. She told Miss Honey at one point, because when they had the newt water situation, Matilda like made the water fall over so that the newt hit Miss Trunchbull. And Matilda's like told Miss Honey like, hey, I have magic powers. And Miss Honey's like, I thought it was really cute because Mrs. Honey was like, I'm glad that you feel so powerful. Like, a lot of people don't feel that way. Like, that was just such a sweet reaction that also felt very genuine, and that, like, you could tell she didn't believe her, but she also wasn't being, like, dismissive.
Yes, I think that's I think that is a very accurate way that she felt, that she never wanted to say, no, you don't, but she was like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if a kid was like, I literally remember telling my teacher that I could control the wind when I was little. So, you know, if a kid tells you wild shit, you're not like, oh, I 100% believe you. But she also, like, wasn't dismissive and didn't make Matilda feel like dumb or inferior or anything. Anyway, so, yeah, Matilda's like, she just kind of decides. She's like, I'm going to get control of these things so that they're more useful to me.
Yeah. And it's cute how she just kind of is like, okay, I just need to practice. And then she practices, and then she's good at it. Which is like, hey, that's normal life, kids. You gotta practice.
And that's another iconic scene with the music and her, like, having everything flying around her and, like, moving the Cheerio. I swear, most kids I knew tried to move a Cheerio with their mind at some point.
I think that's really cute. I thought it was a cute scene. I thought it was just fun. I thought it was really well done to keep it simple but fun.
Yeah. I'm so surprised you never watched this film as a kid.
I did once. I just don't remember it.
Yeah, but that was like for school. Like, that's different than watching it, like, you know, regularly at home. You know what I mean? Maybe, I guess it was like a little bit old by the time you were of the age.
That's probably what it was.
Yeah.
Just trying to make sure. Matilda, after training her powers, I like how she goes back to the house and keeps her promise to Miss Honey not to go in, but she totally like starts to try and terrify the Trunchbull into.
It's very it's keeping her promise, but she's very cheeky about it.
Like, I never went in the house.
Yeah, exactly. So she gets Mrs. Honey's doll, which is one of the first reasons they went into the house at the first place. She like telekinesis it through the window. And this is another interesting thing that I assume, I can't remember if it's in the book or not, and I'm not sure exactly what it's trying to tell us beyond the kindred spirits things, but Mrs. Honey's doll from childhood looks so much like Matilda. Like, it has her hair and the ribbon that she always wears in her hair. And I think that was an interesting decision. But yeah, I took it as like a kindred spirits type thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, she decides to scare Trunchbull, which again I read as like a exact correlation to what Mrs. Honey had just recently told her, that adults get scared too.
And I like how they're like, you murdered him, and she like goes for a very ghost motif, which I thought was a fun
she had a
idea.
Fantastic sense of drama with knocking Trunchbull's portrait into the fire and then like swooshing Mrs. Honey's dad's portrait from like upstairs, and it like almost hits Trunchbull, and Trunchbull has to like fall to her knees to avoid it, which again I thought was really smart framing, in that we were literally bringing Trunchbull like to her knees.
Yes, I thought it was just a lot of fun to have her use the ghost motif, because it's like such a simple way to have these powers be scary, but it's so funny. So I thought it just worked well, and the way they did it was good. And the ghost motif comes up in the next scene where they're at the schoolhouse and she's also getting scared again.
Yeah, so Matilda's hair ribbon that she always wears came off because it was a very windy night. So it came off while she was doing her shenanigans at Trunchbull's. And Trunchbull finds it. I was a little confused because, okay, so like Trunchbull goes to the class. I guess she has to know it's Matilda, right?
I think she thinks it's Matilda, but she can't prove. Like, she can't be like, Matilda lifted a painting across my house. I know it because I found a ribbon in my yard.
Yeah, that's true. So she is in like a whole tizzy the next day. And I loved, this was such a small detail, but so smart. Her bun, which was normally pristine, was like kind of like off to the side, as though she threw it up really quickly. Like, you could tell she was like more frazzled than normal.
Yes. And then
so she goes to Mrs. Honey's room.
Fun uses of the powers.
Yeah, she goes to Mrs. Honey's room and lines everyone up and is like ranting and raving about how like someone was at her house and that's illegal, and that's fair, to be honest. It's illegal to go to someone's house. And I'm trying to think of like the start of her like torment in this scene. But I think it might actually happen before then, where she starts writing like she's Magnus in the chalk.
Yeah, she writes the chalk first, and she starts to try and throw kids all around the room, and Matilda lifts them out of the way, basically.
Yeah. And I liked with that too, right before Trunchbull shows up in the class, Matilda's like quizzing Mrs. Honey. She's like, so what did your dad call Miss Trunchbull? And what did he call you again? And what would have she called him? So then she uses all the right like naming in her scary chalk stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was cute.
I liked that. It was a fun way to add the tension to the scene. And it shows the whole setup payoff thing so well. So I think that was so well done. And it was a fun climax. Yeah. And then, although I didn't like how the ending, she's a little too rushed, where she just runs away.
Yeah, she just runs away. That was weird. I wish there was just like literally like one line that they found, like Mrs. Honey, when they went back to the house, they found like the will that says Mrs. Honey should get everything, or just something.
Yeah, I just wanted one more thing.
Legally, just because she ran away doesn't mean Mrs. Honey could like have the house. Like, and it would make so much sense if there was a will in the house that from her dad being like, "Oh, my daughter gets everything." So yeah, just like one line there would have been nice. Yeah. But yeah, so Matilda like completely freaks Mrs. Trunchbull out. She's like all dizzy, and then everyone, sensing her weakness, starts like throwing their lunches at her,
which was a fun
and this
students unite against the evil principal moment.
Yes, it was so satisfying as a kid. Like, I was like, yes, like fucking revolt. Like, this is our time.
We are the revolution.
Yeah, exactly. It's very much one of those moments. Like, children control the school.
So then we go to the final scene.
Yeah.
Matilda and Miss Honey just hang out all the time.
Yeah, Mrs. Honey has her house back.
Everything's peachy. And then Matilda's parents are like, OMG, we're moving to Guam right now. Which, by the way...
you can hear sirens in the distance.
Yeah. Which, by the way, just in terms of legality, Guam is not going to protect them at all. Guam is a U.S. territory. So, it's the equivalent of if we were running away, we fly to the Yukon the police can still get us there.
Yeah.
We never left America.
They never established her parents as very smart.
That's also fair. I just heard them say Guam, and I'm like,
yeah, and you're
fools.
like, you idiots.
You idiots. Maybe that's why Matilda, in this scene, as we're just about to say, Matilda gets adopted by Miss Honey because she doesn't want to move to Guam.
Yeah.
Maybe now because
really
she's like,
this.
You idiots are just going to get arrested and I'm going to have to fly all the way back.
No, it's because she loved Mrs. Honey.
I know.
I thought this was sweet, and I like that she had the adoption papers just like on hand. She said she'd had them since she could like Xerox, which just feels like something she would do.
Yes.
I thought that was really sweet, and I questioned the legality of the situation. I feel like
you need judges and paperwork and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think you can just sign a form and be like, "Kid's yours."
Yeah, but it's like super sweet, and I think it's such a unique and healthy message, I think, to send kids about like the validity of like a found family. And it's such a unique message to be like, you can find happiness like away from your abusers. I feel like often the message is more like, blood is thicker than water and you should like stick by your family no matter what. And I think it's such like a nice freeing thing of being like, you don't have to. You can find happiness other places.
Yes. I thought it was just a fun way to end it up. Their adoption was cute and they were so happy together. And the parents, I loved the thing the mom said again about she never really, she was only daughter and she just never got her. It was the last minute bit of humanity for the parents before they left, which is what we needed. And then we moved on.
It is. Yeah.
And it ended there, which I thought
and
was
I think
cute.
It was another really sweet line by the narrator of like, Matilda and Mrs. Honey got what they had both always wanted, a loving family. Like, it's just wholesome and like sweet.
Yes. It was very nice and they just were so happy together. So yeah. Do you have any final thoughts on Matilda?
I think Matilda is an iconic movie and I adore it. And I'm honestly like extremely impressed with Danny DeVito's directing in it. I think he does a lot of really like thoughtful decisions in how he directs the film and the camera work, as well as like playful stuff like with the shadows and stuff. I think he did really good in directing the film, and I was surprised he directed it. I didn't know that beforehand. I
thought the film was really well made. I think it's fun. I don't have the same nostalgia glasses that you do to look over it, but I still think it's really good and a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the end. Yeah,
that's it for Matilda.
Thank you all for listening to today's episode. We will see you next time at Film Camp. Which one are you using, Film Camp or Fire? I ask this every week.
I put in both last time because I thought it was cute.
Okay, well that's all I'm saying.